Hi again, everyone. Time for a brand new episode of the Gimme the Hot Sauce podcast. Stacey King alongside Timmy Whispers just finished a high-level business meeting, and he's joined us. Or he came back from the bathroom, one of the two.
Well, there's more decisions made in the bathroom than the boardroom, as they say.
Oh, my goodness.
So you got big news to tell us about? Anything going on?
Nothing yet, but when it happens, you guys will be first to know.
Wow.
Dun, 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 dun.
Can't wait. That's going to be fun stuff. Hey, I want to thank everybody who reached out and said some kind words about our interview last week with Phil Jackson, the Zen Master. Of course, Phil does not do a lot of media. He agreed to join Stacey, his former player, and we had a lot of fun talking to Phil. We're glad that the folks out there enjoyed it. We had a lot of people that tuned in on YouTube and on the various podcast platforms, and it was great to have Phil on.
You know what? We, here at Gimme the Hot Sauce America, we aim for the best, okay? We try to bring the best guests that we possibly can find. I call it big game fishing. I throw the line out there. Sometimes you get some nibbles, Mark. Sometimes you catch a little bluegill, you got to throw it back. And then there's other times you catch a shark.
That's right.
And we caught a shark. Caught a few sharks this year.
We got another champion bull coming up. Scott Williams, the tank, is going to join us. He wrote a new book, Through the Fire, talking about some personal adversity that he went through as a young man that helped shape his life. We'll also get some stories from Scott about his time with the Bulls, about
Tiny Avenger.
Yeah, we talked about that last time he was on the show. He enjoyed that a lot.
Yeah, he's a Tiny Avenger. Oh,
yeah.
I don't know what episode that was on the show, but it was a great one.
And we got another special guest coming up next week. You want to tease that, Stacey?
Yeah, tease it. Go ahead, Mark.
Scottie Pippen, one of the greatest of all time, is going to join us next week for a special interview. Scottie, of course, has not done a lot of interviews either over the last few years since he left ESPN. We're going to talk to him about his great Bulls career. He's got his own line of bourbon that he's talking and wants to sell.
I just talked to him today. First thing I asked him was, where's my digit, my bourbon?
That's right.
I'm not even a bourbon drinker, but I will drink his bourbon because that's my boy. And I asked him, I said, hey, can I get a digit? He's like, I didn't send you one. No, you didn't send me one. You didn't send me one. So he's going to send me one.
So Scott Williams coming up, and make your plans to join us for Scottie Pippen next week. And when he brings some bourbon for us, you're going to wash that down with some Colt 45? People got a kick out of that story.
Mark, first of all, don't bring that up again. Okay?
Well, it's all over social media, other than that.
Sometimes, America, I have a lot of great stories. A lot of great stories, America. I never thought I was going to bring that story up. You notice I never brought it up.
Well, Phil brought it up, yeah.
Phil dug that. He dug real deep in the chest cavity to pull that one out. I don't suggest anybody, to drink Colt 45 while you're dehydrated or if you're angry. Don't do that. Those are the two things. Don't do that. But it was an experience, and it was a learning experience, and I've never done it since.
That's right. High alcohol content in the malt liquor
Williams,
for all
if
you.
you're out there, I'm looking for you. You told me it was smooth and it goes down perfectly. And I'm telling you, it wasn't smooth and it didn't go down perfectly.
Other thing that didn't go down perfectly for Bulls fans was the NBA draft lottery held earlier this week, and they only had a 1.8% chance to get the first pick or 8.5% to move into the top four. So it's not like everybody was counting on getting one of those top four picks, but it would have been nice in terms of trying to improve the roster. And he's going to go to the San Antonio Spurs. He, of course, being Victor Wembanyama, the French sensation, 7'5", combination of Kevin Durant and Rudy Gobert. I mean, he's going to be an impact player from day one. It's kind of interesting. The San Antonio Spurs got David Robinson with the number one pick, and then Robinson got hurt midway through his career. They got the first pick, and they got Tim Duncan. Now they're getting Victor Wembanyama. Some things just break right.
Well, let me just say this, Mark. In America, I'm not a sore loser. But I am a sore loser. I want a recount of this draft process. I'm calling it out right now. I believe in these conspiracy theories. There's just no way in the world that kid should have ended up there. I'm sorry. We needed him way more than San Antonio. Okay? San Antonio's had two of the best centers of all time on their roster. Now they're going to get a third.
A third, yeah.
You got running back you, quarterback you, linebacker you. Now you got center, college, or whatever. Three has a possibility of now having three of the all-time great centers. Now, Victor's got to prove himself, but from all the hype coming in, it looks like he's going to be one of those guys. So I'm a little disappointed, and I feel like I was hitting the grassy knoll, and I want to recount. I want to redo the draft process over again.
Well, did you see the photo of him wearing a Tony Parker jersey when he was a young boy? Tony Parker, of course, the great Spur. Yeah.
Listen, America.
I'm not saying there's a conspiracy or anything, but
all I'm going to say is somebody tweeted me. You know, I get a lot of great responses from people. Okay, they always, you know, I'm active on social media, and so somebody tweeted me when Brian Windhorst was in France during the draft, and they were interviewing him once they figured out where he was going, and Windhorst slipped up and basically said, "You've known for weeks now that you were going to San Antonio, and you know, so now it's happened. So what do you think about that?" And then I'm like, "Wait a minute! Did he just say he's known for weeks that he's going to San Antonio? How do you make that big of a gaffe? You know what I'm saying? If you didn't know something that everyone else doesn't know, you know what I'm saying?"
Brian looked a little bit sleepy in that interview. It was 2:15 in Paris, and you know he's not exactly in the best physical condition.
Mark is a straight bullet. There's strays flying over windy, baby.
He looked tired. Let me put it that way.
He probably went and had a what do you call that? McDonald's Royale. You know? He probably Royale with cheese.
They don't know what a quarter pounder is.
No, that's called. Remember?
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was a Big Mac or a quarter pounder Royale or something. Yeah. He had a lot of those that night. He looked like he looked like he had a bender out there.
So conspiracy theories aside, the way things shook out, Portland moved up from 5 to 3, and they're trying to get some veteran help to pacify Damian Lillard, who says, build a championship team around me. He doesn't want to ask for a trade. He wants to play his entire career in Portland. He's on a long-term contract. The Bulls right now are owed a pick from the Lowry Markkanen trade via Portland. Right now, that's a protected lottery pick, so they're not going to get it this year. But there's been some talk that the Blazers might be willing to send the pick that the Knicks owe them, which is number 23, to the Bulls, so that they can get out from under the NBA restrictions. It gets kind of complicated, but in terms of trading future firsts, you think there's some common ground with the Bulls and the Trailblazers? Because we heard that AK met with Brandon Miller of Alabama, who's the second or third pick in the draft.
Well, if you're the Bulls, you got to do your due diligence just in case that happens, you know, and they have assets, you know, because Damian Lillard is not getting any younger. They've got to put people around him that can help him try to win a championship. And, you know, we have some guys that are tradable pieces. Whether you want to get rid of them or not, they're tradable pieces. Phoenix also is on the take. You know, they're looking to move DeAndre Ayton, which is a young center, which, you know, a rim protector, big that can run the floor, which we're in the market for. So you don't, you know, if you're the Bulls front office, you got to look at everything. You know, you can't wait. You know, I always say, you know, you can be proactive, but it's bad to be reactive. You know what I'm saying? So it's better to get out ahead of everything and work it and try to find something that's going to benefit you and help you instead of waiting and depending on other people.
So that, you know, that kind of trade to move up to the number 3rd pick in the draft would probably cost you DeRozan or Levine. I mean, is that something then you're going into a total rebuild if you make that kind of move?
Yeah, you know, we were talking about this earlier with my good friend Francisco and Nicky, you know, Knuckles. We were talking before we came.
And happy birthday to Nicky, by the way.
Yeah, he's 72. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Nicky.
He looks good for 72.
You old fool. So, you know, we were talking about that. And you know, Lonzo Ball, until you know, like, what the situation is with Lonzo, is he going to come back? Is he going to be healthy? Is he even going to play next year? Because if he's not going to play next year, then you might as well just go ahead and say, hey, look, let's see if we can salvage this and start rebuilding. And you got to keep your young players, you know, Patrick Williams, you know, Kobe White. That means you're going to have to commit to them. And then you may have to move one or two of these guys, you know, or you might have to move. I mean, you got Vooch too, as a free agent. They have to make a decision on him. So they've got a really, really big summer to find out what they want to do.
Yeah, they're really the two options that AK talked about at his end of the season news conference was kind of sticking with continuity and keep the core pieces in place. Then that means basically you re-sign Vooch, you re-sign Kobe White, and you just try to add some guys with the mid-level exception that maybe bring in a shooter. But when you look at the fact that they only won 40 games this year and Lonzo's most likely not going to play for some or all of next season, you know, that's not a great formula for going into next year when you know there's so many good teams in the East.
Yeah, and even the younger teams are going to get better. You know,
Detroit,
so, you know, Detroit's going to get better.
Orlando.
And Indiana's going to get better. Orlando's going to get better. So, you know, you find yourself, if you stay pat, you're banking that, you're going to have Zoe back. You're going to go out and get some pieces that you need with the core group that you already have. But you're going to have to make a commitment to re-sign Vooch, I don't know what he's going to offer, what he wants. But, I'm sure he's looking for, this is his last big contract, so it's going to be, pretty expensive. And then you got to remember, DeMar DeRozan's a free agent after this season, I think. So
yeah, he is.
They've got a lot of things. You don't want Vooch to walk for nothing because you basically gave up all your young talent and draft picks to get him. So if he walked out the door and you basically got nothing for him. He was a rented player. And then same thing with DeMar. DeMar leaves, all-star caliber player, and you didn't move him before you knew he was going to be a free agent. Then you lose an all-star caliber player and got nothing in return.
The Bulls obviously need some three-point shooting. They ranked near the bottom of the league in three-point attempts and three-point makes during the past season. There are some guys on the free agent market. There's Seth Curry. There's Max Strus, the local kid who's shooting the lights out for the Miami Heat as they're rolling through the playoffs. How important is it for them to get some more three-point shooting on this roster?
It's very important. You see in the playoffs how important it is to have viable pieces on the floor that are a threat to shoot threes. That's something the Bulls don't have. You don't have a consistent outside guy that when that ball leaves his hand, it's automatic. You look at a guy like Max Strus, who we had. He was in our building, and then we let him go. And we kept. I don't remember who we kept, but wasn't a good decision there.
Well, what happened was, he had the ACL injury, and then they changed front offices. So AK and them didn't bring in Strus, so they had no loyalty to keeping him.
Yeah, I mean, look at him now. He's starting for a team that may be getting to the finals. That wasn't no fluke that they walked into Boston and won that, won game one. Jimmy Butler is playing out of his mind right now. So, and with the, Duncan Robinson, who's a guy who's been basically on the bench most of the season, they had to play him with Tyler Hero being out. He had to come in and give him some scoring, and they're not worried about his defense. They feel they can cover it up out there with the Bam and Gimme and Kyle Lowry, and they've been able to do that.
And how about Miami? I think they've got like 7 undrafted guys on their roster. Caleb Martin is like a force playing that wing position, and Gabe Vincent seems to hit big shots every game.
If you've done your homework on those Martin boys, you go back to when they were in Nevada.
Yeah.
Both those twins
the
were
Sweet 16,
really good players. Okay, because they didn't go to a big university, they didn't get put in situations where they could succeed. They were in Charlotte and they were just role players. This kid has shown you that he's more than a role player. He's a serviceable player that can defend. He's a wing defender. He can knock down threes. He can handle the ball at 6'6", 6'7", and he's what everyone is looking for. A guy with long arms that's very athletic, that can switch and guard different people. And, bottom line is, he's one of these guys that people want. The Bulls could use a guy like that.
You don't think AK is looking at this saying, hey, we had a better regular season than the Heat, and if we had just beat them in that play-in game, we might.
They had him beat.
Right? Could that be a possibility? Bulls
fans are worried the fact that they're going to say, well, that could have been us.
Exactly.
That went all the way through to the Eastern Conference Finals.
No.
Yeah. But I mean,
just being honest.
Yeah.
I keep it real here. No cap. Okay. That wouldn't have been us.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been us because we have there were so many holes in this team. This team, anytime you're up 14, 15 points and you lose, you can't be a really serious contender because you can't finish games. This team did not show you that they can finish games. They had Miami beat. They had them beat. All they had to do was finish the game.
We saw a lot of games like that during this past season.
That's what I'm saying, Mark. That's not a knock on this team. It's being honest.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a team that's going to go deep into the playoffs, you have to be a finisher. You got to have guys that can finish games for you. Jimmy Butler by himself is a finisher. When Jimmy wasn't in the game in the series, and I think it was game 2 in New York, and he set out, that team played really, really well without him. But in that fourth quarter, down the stretch, that 3-4 minute stretch in the end of the game, when they needed someone to close the game out, he wasn't there. And they ended up losing a very close game to the Knicks. But then when Jimmy came back, you saw the difference that he makes. You got to be able to finish. To get to where Miami is doing, you got to remember, too, people forget, Miami wasn't a very good defensive team this year.
No.
Compared to how they were in the past, okay? This was a very average Miami defense. They have been one of the best defensive teams in the playoffs. right now. They're on a hot streak defensively.
Yeah, and you look at what Miami did in Game 1 against Boston, and it was Jimmy Butler had the ball in his hands every half-court possession. He was facilitating. He was getting in the paint, either scoring for himself, getting to the free throw line, or kicking it out to one of their open three-point shooters. On the other side of the court, Jason Tatum was traveling. He didn't score in the fourth quarter in that game. He had 30 points, but he had 0 in the fourth quarter when it was winning time. And you look at the difference in a guy like Jimmy Butler who's not afraid of anything. And I know a lot of Bulls fans are reaching, oh, man, why do we trade him? Well, you got to remember, Jimmy was looking for a max deal. He ended up going to Minnesota, wore out his welcome there, went to Philly. They didn't want to keep him. And now he's in Miami. He's found a home, and he's playing great. He's a top 10 player in the league, but that wouldn't necessarily have happened here.
Well, America, let me tell you, Jimmy needed structure. Jimmy's always had Buzz Williams at Marquette was a guy that Jimmy respected, and there was law there. There wasn't law in Minnesota, even though Tom Thibodeau was a coach and Jimmy had played for him. Jimmy didn't like the front office. It wasn't that he didn't like Tibbs. He was against the front office, so therefore he didn't play. He played good, but he wore out his welcome there. You go to Philadelphia, same thing. He wore out his welcome. You go to Miami where they have culture, the Heat culture, just like I always say, you have culture. You look at the New England Patriots culture, San Diego Spurs, teams that win have strong culture. They have strong leadership. Okay, so a player like Jimmy comes into Miami. LeBron, same thing. LeBron is one of these guys. As great as LeBron is, LeBron wants to do things the way he wants to do them. He went to Miami. He had to learn how to win because he wasn't going to win a championship by himself. Maybe he wins one, maybe two, but he wasn't going to win any championships until he went to Miami because he had to be shown how to win and let the front office do what the front office does. He has no control over who comes to Miami's roster, who doesn't. So there's structure there. Pat Riley is the man. Pat Riley is the guy that calls all the shots. And
he's the godfather.
And Spoelstra is a disciple of that. And there's back when LeBron came, when he first year that he was there, Miami was playing a preseason game in Charlotte, and LeBron wanted to stay and party on a Saturday, and the Heat didn't play again until like Tuesday or Wednesday. Now, normally, and LeBron's been other places where they stay. So he asked Dwayne Wade to go in there and say, hey, man, can you go talk to Spoelstra and see if we can stay? He said, no, you go talk to Spoelstra. I already know he's going to say no. So LeBron went to go ask him. And then I guess Spoelstra told him, no, we're going home tonight.
Yeah.
Sorry, going home. And that was a message. That was a message to LeBron. We're not making concessions. We have a way we're doing things. You either get on board or it's going to be a long time for you.
And every time Jimmy gets in front of the microphone in these post-game press conferences, he always says Coach Spoelstra and Coach Pat. So, there's reverence there and there's respect.
And you know what? I mean, I'm glad to see him playing well. Jimmy's a guy who's always had a chip on his shoulder.
Sure. You think about the way he was brought up.
Yes, he has a chip on his shoulder. He's been through so much in his life, and he's constantly fighting for respect. He wants his name, when it's all said and done, to be one of the best players ever to play the game. And how do you do that? You do that by showing up in these moments here in the playoffs, carrying a team. You look at this roster, you take Jimmy Butler off this roster, this team is not in the second round of the playoffs. They may not even make the playing game if Jimmy Butler's not on that squad. You put Jimmy Butler on there, and then you put 7 other guys who are undrafted, who have chips on their shoulders. Now you got a team with attitude, moxie, and that's willing to do whatever it takes to win.
Looks like we're going to have 2 great conference finals. We're recording this podcast on Thursday afternoon. We're ahead of Game 2 in the Nuggets-Lakers series. That first game was unbelievable. It looked like Denver was going to run them right out of the gym, and Lakers came all the way back within 3. LeBron actually had a shot to tie the game. Jokic was almost perfect in that first half, and then AD went off in the second half, finished with 40 points.
Well, the problem the Lakers are going to have with Denver is that, because of Jokic does so many things. He handles the ball, he posts up, he can shoot the 3. Golden State did not have a big like that. So all the Lakers had to do was adjust to the 3-point line, know where Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were, Poole, always keep someone on them. This is a different animal because when you look at Denver, they can run. They're not old. They get out and run. They're athletic. They can get out, and you got a center pushing the ball. So when you got a center pushing the ball, that forces, Anthony Davis to come out on the floor, which now takes away your rim protection. And if you saw that first quarter and the first half, Denver got a lot of buckets by guys cutting to the basket, dive cuts, and Jokic find them on little bounce pass layups. And that caused the Lakers some problems. Now, where the Lakers got back in the second half is the Lakers put Hachimura on Jokic because they felt like he was.
They let Davis roam.
They thought he was going to stay more on the perimeter, and so you put a smaller guy on him that he's not going to be able to beat him off the dribble because Hachimura will be able to move his feet. And then if he comes inside, you can double with Anthony Davis, and then those guys have to make shots. So I guarantee you're going to see that defense tonight. But I think Denver's also going to counter that because they were probably caught off guard in the second half.
Because Gordon would stay in that dunker spot that let Anthony Davis roam.
Yes, exactly. So I feel the Lakers are going to come out and do it again. They need games from other people. You need Schroeder to play well. You need Hachimura. You need, Lonnie Walker.
D'Angelo Russell's a no-show in one.
Yes, you got to have him playing well. If those guys don't show up and play like they did in the other two series, the Lakers are not going to win because you can't just rely on LeBron and Anthony Davis to carry you.
Yeah, and even with the bad start the Lakers had, they only lost by 6, so it's going to be interesting to see how that series develops. Before we bring in Scott Williams, we should deal with the national story, which is, of course, Ja Morant for the second time being seen on Instagram Live flashing a gun. And, there was an interview with Adam Silver that was done by Malik Andrews the other day, and he was pretty much very candid about it, saying that he was shocked that he would do something like this again so soon after he got an 8-game suspension for having a gun in a Denver area nightclub. I don't know how long the suspension is going to be, but it's going to be significant. And not only is it going to damage Ja's brand, it's going to hurt this Memphis team, which looked like it was an on the rise kind of team in the West. Now what do they do?
Well, what they need is get this guy some help. And really try to get him to understand because what he's done, like he didn't break a law. He's able to brandish a gun. He's able to have a gun. He's not a convict, never been convicted. But you have certain morality clauses in your NBA contract. Whether you've read the fine print or not, you have them. And I know for a fact that's in there. So he probably didn't read it. But it shows you that he has no respect for authority. Because here you are, you just not less than a month has gone by since you got suspended. And really, everybody wants to blame Dylan Brooks. You got to give Ja Morant some of that blame too. Because that team, when he left, that put a big dent in that team. And when he came back, he didn't look like the same player. Mentally, he didn't look like he was in it. So he's got to take some blame on that. But to listen, he's 22, 23 years old. I'm not making any excuses for him because you are going to make mistakes. You are going to make mistakes. But you got to surround yourself with positive people that bring positive energy to you. You don't want to be around negative people, the yes men. His father, I don't know his dad, but from the videos I see, the dad is always, basically like his best friend. He's hanging out at the clubs and making it rain. And, as a father, you can't do those kind of things. You got to see that your son is getting out of control. You got to see that your son was not raised that way. And you got to put your foot down and say, hey, look, you need to get yourself together here because you're costing yourself a lot of money. And trust me, the NBA is going to be here long after Ja Morant is done. There's true. Great players coming every single year. And Nike's getting ready to drop him, I think, because they did the same thing to Kyrie Irving. They took his shoe off the market and then they dropped him. And that's because the guy didn't want to take the shot. That's because the guy was, walking around and having his own point of view that he got dropped. This is the guy that's basically doing what the league doesn't want him to do. He just had the conversation and said, hey, look, we're going to suspend you this many games. Don't do this again. And then you got on TV with Jalen Rose and said, I learned my lesson. I know I let a lot of people down, da-da-da. And then you're right back doing the same thing to an NBA YoungBoy song. Clap, clap, bang, bang. Oh, Lord, come on, Ja Morant. Stop it, son. Damn.
Other big story out of Philadelphia, they lose Game 7 to the Boston Celtics. Doc Rivers walks the plank 2 days later. Doc Rivers, one of the classiest individuals in the sport. I'm sure he'll resurface with another team if he wants to, but when you look at the fact that 3 of the past 4 championship coaches are out, Doc Rivers is out, it's just amazing what kind of pressure is on coaches now, especially with the top seeded teams. If you don't deliver a championship, you're gone.
It's sad, too, because, again, I've never seen a coach shoot a basketball, get a rebound, or play defense. It falls on the players. And what you're doing now is just like we do every single day now. You know, we accommodate, we coddle people. We don't give people responsibilities and hold people accountable for their actions. You know, you got a guy, you know, you're in the playoffs. How do you, if you're James Harden, how are you going to Las Vegas to hang out at strip clubs and eat lemon pepper wings and you're in the playoffs? How can you even be serious about your craft if that's what you're doing? You're flying clear from the East Coast to the West Coast to go hang out when you are you're the second round of the playoffs trying to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, and you have an opportunity because the winner out of Boston and Philadelphia had to be the favorites to get to the finals. And you got a chance to do that. And so now you find yourself, you know, you go in there, and obviously, you know, I heard where Embiid was really devastated that Doc Rivers got fired. And then there's rumors that Harden was the one who did it. And then he came with Daryl Morey. Morey's the general manager. These players have to start being held accountable. You know, you got to stop blaming the coaches. I mean, unless they're just blatant, they're really.
Except for Budenholzer. We can definitely blame him.
But you got to stop blaming the players. And like I said, there's a lot of good coaches. Who would have thought that these coaches would be on the market right now?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you consider the amount of wins these guys have accumulated.
Well, if you're mediocre, you get an extension.
Yeah, if you overachieve with a bad team, right?
What are you saying?
I'm not. Who am I talking about?
Yeah, who you
might be a local coach.
Oh, shots fired!
Straight bullets.
Sorry, did I do that?
Yeah. Wow, this guy here. But you know what though?
Hey, you know what I mean.
No one would. Yeah, exactly. What? No one would have thought these coaches would have been there. I mean, Nick Nurse. You got
Monty Williams,
Budenholzer,
and now Doc.
And then you got to remember, before all those guys, it was Frank from the Lakers.
Right. Yeah. I'm drawing a blank too. Frank Vogel. He's interviewed for some of these jobs.
And Frank Vogel. I mean, a championship coach. I mean, it was the bubble, but he won a championship. And he was fired a few years later. So coaching now, I'm telling you, the expectations now is win or find another job.
Yeah. Hey, our guy Tank is in the waiting room. Scott Williams ready to join us on Gimme the Hot Sauce. We'll have more NBA talk with Scott. But first, I want to tell you about our friend Jeff Fukovich at Nationwide Insurance. When it comes to insurance for your auto, home, and business, make sure you contact the king of insurance, our buddy Nationwide agent Jeff Fukovich. You can reach him at jeffvuk.com. That's jeffvuk.com. And he has the best jingle in the business, Stace.
Nationwide is on your side.
We'll see if Scott Williams wants to sing when he joins us next on Give Me the Hot Sauce. It's our pleasure to welcome in Stacey's good friend Scott Williams, who joins us. Scott, we had you on a couple of years ago, and people love that show, so we're glad to have you back. Obviously, we're going to talk a lot of basketball. We'll also talk about your new book, Through the Fire. But first, let's just catch up. What have you been doing with yourself these days?
I will appreciate you guys having me back on. I really love this show. I got a chance to catch some of the show that you did with Phil Jackson. My old coach there got me started in the NBA, and I think you guys just do a great job. So this year, it seems like it's been a whirlwind. The book has finally come out. It took me much longer to get it done than I thought. Through the Fire, a memoir of trauma and loss, basketball and triumph, has been kind of my baby project here for the last 2.5 years while I've been doing commentating over at Grand Canyon University. Shout out to the Lopes Up. They've made the NC2A tournament in basketball 2 of the last 3 years, so excited about them. And then following these Suns into the playoffs until they ran into a buzzsaw in the Denver Nuggets. This kid Jokic, King, is unlike any big man since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Shaquille O'Neal, things he can do out on that floor with his footwork, his vision, his passing ability, his soft touch around the basket. He had a triple-double in a game 1 against the Lakers with 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. Went on to score 34 points, 21 boards, and 14 assists. So it's been a pleasure to be able to watch that guy perform.
Talking about Phoenix, are they I know it's traumatic because I think everybody in Phoenix thought this team had a chance to get out of the Western Conference, and with Kevin Durant trade, I don't think they visioned Chris Paul being hurt, but they still felt the team had enough to get to the championship and at least challenge for a title. Are they devastated right now? Are they in panic mode because you fired Monty Williams and it's like, oh man, it just seemed like that was quick and drastic.
Well, a little shell shock, there's no doubt about that. I think the team had expectations of winning a championship, at least getting to the NBA Finals. Anything less than the Western Conference Finals was going to be a huge disappointment when they first traded for Durant. But that's bad luck sometimes falls on a basketball team. A freak injury in warm-ups prior to a game to Kevin Durant to ankle cost him 6 to 8 games of much-needed time on the floor with his teammates Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton, the rest of the starters. He wasn't getting a lot of chemistry with those cats, not getting real comfortable offensively. As a result, he never had one of those Kevin Durant moment games where he's dropping in 50 points and he's 6 of 9 from the 3-point line and dishing out 8 to 12 assists, and just never the most spectacular player on the floor. And I say that even though he was a free throw away from having a 40-point game in game number 3 of that Nuggets series. It just, Booker seemed to be the guy during that playoff run that was carrying the Suns this postseason. The injury to Chris Paul, I honestly believe hurt. The team would get into situations where the Nuggets would go on runs. They did not have that leadership to steady the ship on the floor. Monty Williams at times seemed as though he lacked the ability to make adjustments on the fly when the Nuggets were putting on a 17-0 run to end the first quarter, scoring 81 points in the first half. He had no answers, and that was pretty much the end of the series there. And having a poor showing and a must-win game at home, back-to-back years, once to the Mavericks and then again to the Denver Nuggets, was enough to cost Monty his job.
For those folks watching on YouTube, you can see over Scott's right shoulder, he's got proudly displayed the front page of the Chicago Tribune after the 3 championships
I got it in my
for the
office
Chicago
today.
Bulls. And we, of course, have banners decorating our office here in beautiful Palatine. Scott, when you were playing, I don't remember if the story was reported about the Bulls like that, was reported about your childhood and the tragedy that befell you when you were in North Carolina. Was that story reported in Chicago? And furthermore, what was your motivation in getting out front publicly and telling your story in this new book?
Well, a few people did know. There was a couple articles written, but not everybody knew my story. And it all kind of hatched as an idea during the middle of the pandemic, or the height of the pandemic, when the NCAA tournament was canceled and the NBA season was shut down, Major League Baseball was shut down. We had no sports, and Michael Jordan released his 10-part documentary, The Last Dance, and got a chance to catch up with Stacey and Will and BJ and Cliff Levingston, some of my old teammates, and we start telling stories about those early championship runs. Well, I like to call it the first dance, and I start putting some of those stories on social media. And people start saying, hey, why don't you write a biography about that? We like the stories. So I got with this guy named Ben Guest who was working on a book. And I said, I'll help you with yours if you help me with mine. And I started telling stories about Chicago and even North Carolina. But he said, Scott, what happened before you got to North Carolina growing up? And that's when it got real and it got raw and real emotional. I grew up in a house with a lot of domestic abuse, both physical and a ton of verbal. Directed at me, my brother, and my mother. And I share all those stories in the book and the shame I had of trying to keep that from the outside world and all the, I guess, horror that we were living with. I write about having to stack pots and pans in front of my bedroom door. So if my father would walk into the room, I'll be alerted. Having to sneak out of the second story of our home and hiding in a neighbor's house that I had the key to. I was taking care of their plants while they were away on vacation, waiting for my mother to come home so we could come back and be there for her, and felt it was safer to come home when she was around. So that was painful. I got a knock on my door from my coach start of my sophomore year in college, after my mother had left my father and told me that he found her across town and put a gun on her, shot her and killed her, and then killed himself. And that was the lowest point in my life. I wanted to give up on college and go back to California, be closer to family. And Coach Smith just said no. He wanted me close. He had promised my mother that he would look out for me when I was away at school. And true to his word, that Carolina family, the Carolina culture wrapped a warm blanket of love and protection around me. And, I had some dark days where I didn't sleep and didn't know where I'd find the strength to get through a Coach Smith practice. He worked us hard. He didn't take it easy on me. So I felt as though if I had that inner strength and willpower to be able to handle a Coach Smith practice and still be able to go out there and perform on the floor, that I could get through anything in life. And one thing that Coach Smith always did was it was the player's responsibility to remember three things on that practice plan. There was an offensive emphasis, which might simply be make the extra pass on offense. A defensive emphasis could be sprint back on defense. But the most important thing was the thought for the day. And it had nothing to do with basketball. It came from politicians, world leaders, sports icons, their pop figures, culture people. And the one that was a recurring theme over my 4 years there was it's never too late to do the right thing. And so I released my book. I wrote it. And there was days that I thought, there's no way I'm telling some of these stories out in public for fear of the Twitter trolls. And it's real. I talk about wetting the bed as an 18-year-old and as a senior in high school. And I didn't know why, but it's that fear and that trauma going to sleep every night. And I didn't want that, that knowledge out there. It's embarrassing. But I thought about what my mother did and the sacrifices that she made and how she wanted me and my brother to be strong, confident individuals. She didn't raise no punks, no sissies. So I put it out there, and that's being well received. My hope is that I will help a young man or a young girl or even a young woman in an abusive situation. I'm going to say I'm going to save a life, but I hope I can change one and alter one. They can see that if I can make it and achieve my goals of getting a college degree and my dream of playing the NBA, so can they achieve their goals and their dreams as well.
Yeah, Scott, that's one of the things I think that, people need to know, that a lot of times athletes we're looked at as superhuman. Like, we don't have issues behind the scenes. We don't have things that they're dealing with because we're on a certain level. But, we bleed, we cry, we hurt like everybody else. And it's good to see, yourself and some of these athletes like DeMar DeRozan, who talks about mental health, come out, and Kevin Love, who are not afraid, who are coming out, telling their stories, telling people like, hey, look, these things happen to me. I'm human, As this was going on when you're writing this book, I know how important your mom is, and my mom is the same way. Moms are sacred, man. Though they're on a totally different, pedestal when it comes to moms, Tell our listeners a little bit about your mom and how much she meant to you.
Yeah, King. The first part of what you said is so important. Mental health. I think 35 years ago, probably even 25 years ago, if an athlete had some sort of issues and they were struggling with their mental health, it was looked at as a sign of weakness. And nowadays, it's not so much anymore. It's great to see these teams are helping players. I know Wiggins, the kid John Morant, has got some issues, and they're addressing them, and they're getting some support from the team. As well as the NBA, and not just the NBA, but a lot of different sports organizations, even tennis and golf. So I'm so glad to see that is not the stigma that it used to be. My mother was my everything growing up. She was the first one that taught me how to play baseball when I was 3 years younger than my brother. He didn't want me tagging along with him all the time. It was my mother that took me in the backyard, would hit grounders to me, and taught me how to get my mitt down on the ground and catch a ball in my glove and get it out quickly and be able to aim and fire and throw it back to her, or put the bat on the ball, watching it with my eyes. Those are the early memories that I have of getting my first love from my mother. She's 5'10", long legs, beautiful smile, dimples. And just a beautiful woman, quick to laugh or tell a joke. Always had a smile on her face, even though like I said, we were a household. I mean, from the outside, everything looked good. 2-story suburban house, swimming pool in the backyard with a jacuzzi and a fire pit. A Cadillac and a Volvo in the driveway. There's people that have come up to me that lived on my street that went to high school with me, had no idea of some of the horrors that my brother, mother, and I were going through.
I heard you on a podcast recently giving credit to Michael Jordan for helping launch your career with the Bulls, and we all know MJ can be a good guy, but he can be a tough teammate. And we also know Jerry Krause is about as stubborn a guy as there come. And Michael, in the past, he tried to get Walter Davis on the team at the end of Walter's career, and he tried to push other North Carolina guys to Krause. And Krause always wanted to say, "This is my team. I do the roster. Don't bother me with this stuff." So how did it work? You told a story about that you worked out with MJ in the summer before training camp, and eventually that led to Krause inviting you to training camp because you were an undrafted guy, even though you had great stats at North Carolina. How much of a role did MJ have, and what were your conversations like with Jerry leading up to being invited to training camp?
Yeah, I write about this in my book. I was kind of projected to be a low lottery pick or a first rounder, and I slipped all the way out of the draft. And a lot of it had to do with my right shoulder would sublux or dislocate in basketball games, and so I go undrafted. And there was a small window for undrafted rookie free agents back in the late 80s, early 90s to try to stick and make a team. And just so happened, Fred Whitfield, who was a buddy of Michael Jordan, was putting on a basketball camp for underprivileged kids about an hour down the road from Chapel Hill in Greensboro. And I get finagled to myself an invitation to be able to play in that because MJ brought a lot of pro guys from the NBA and some of the Charlotte Hornets, which was a new franchise that just started in '88. Would come up. So one of my former teammates at North Carolina, J.R. Reed, who I just sent a book to yesterday, was playing in that game. And it gave me a good, hard, physical game of basketball, which was my strength. In fact, Jordan had said to the guys in the locker room prior to us taking the court, if you're not here to play a real game of physical basketball game, there's a door you can leave. So everybody was taking his cue and, slamming bodies into each other and blocking each other and knocking people down. Seriously, they're making a documentary out of it, as a matter of fact, because no one can believe how hard we played in those games. But the game was tight, and I got an offensive rebound late in the basketball game. I found 23 over in the right corner with his tongue half out of his mouth and fired a strike to him, and he knocks down what's going to be the game winner. So I remember him getting in this red Corvette after the game. And what I didn't know was Fred Whitfield tells the story that he immediately gets on the phone with Jerry Krause, who, as you guys know, is the general manager of the Chicago Bulls, and says you should give Williams a tryout. But I almost screwed it up because the day that I was supposed to go to Chicago, I went down to Charlotte thinking it'd be easier to make that squad because they were a new expansion team. I played with JR. I knew Kenny Gaddison and a couple of other guys that things that they had on the squad. And thinking being a Carolina guy, 2.5 hours from Chapel Hill would, be a plus for me. But they failed me on my physical again. So I get on a plane that afternoon. Krause picks me up for the airport. Goes, "I heard you failed your physical." But they had decided me to a rookie contract. And I had to try to make the rookie squad, and then got invited to veterans camp. And there was about 8 of us trying out for that squad. And I just showed up one morning. I was the last guy standing.
Tank, I always tell people, because we have so many great stories of those championship runs, and I also call it the first dance because that was the first time that the Bulls won a championship, the organization won championships. Tell our listeners what it was like for you being on a team with so many stars like Jordan and Pippen, and it always felt like a rock band with me, like U2 or somebody. Tell the listeners your experience when you came in from North Carolina, undrafted player, and you come on that team.
Well, it was great because, like you said, Stacey, it was a circus, right? We were like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones when we went on the road. We had the biggest, best player on the planet, most marketable guy, obviously. People flocked to his style of play. So everywhere we went, there was, people cheering for us on the road as well as on the home. I remember going to Cleveland and landed at 2:00 in the morning because we had played the night before. And there's, 200 people outside of our hotel just to get a glimpse of MJ in a snowstorm. it was surreal. But the thing I remember most about my rookie year was the intensity of training camp. That how the first day, even before that night before, Phil and Jerry and the rest of the squad were talking about how we needed to have the best record in the Eastern Conference because they had been bested by the Detroit Pistons the previous 3 years in the playoffs, and that they didn't think that they could win a Game 7 on the road in Detroit, and wanted to make sure they got to a situation like that game would be played in Chicago Stadium. And training camp was a war. MJ was a smoldering beast. The way he attacked every drill, all of our scrimmages, and everybody else fell in line, took that cue, beat the snot out of one another, as you know, for 2.5, 3 hours every day, full contact for 14 straight days. And but then we start the season 0-3. So things got even more ratcheted up from there. But before we finally hit our stride, ended up winning 61 games that season, and then sweeping the Pistons and beating the Lakers was just unbelievably surreal for me because I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up a huge Laker fan. In fact, I wanted to go to UCLA. They messed up the recruiting. That's for another show. But playing against Magic Johnson and James Worthy, I wore number 42 because I wanted to be James Worthy in high school and in college. Sorry, James. I felt I did a bad job of trying to be as good as that Hall of Famer. But that was just an unbelievable moment. I remember after we won the championship, going into that locker room, being happy, but also crying because my mother wasn't there to be able to celebrate, which was a shared goal of ours of winning that NBA championship.
Of course, you came in a year after Stacey and B.J. Armstrong. What was it like for you young bucks to go on the road and hang out? You got any great Stacey King stories?
Oh, Stacey was my road dog, man. We used to get into a lot of trouble. There was no cell phones back then,
right?
And no internet, so not much of anything we got caught for ended up online, but which is a good thing. But I remember the first road trip I had hanging with Stacey. We went to Prince's Club in Minneapolis when we were up there to play the T-Wolves, and Stacey indoctrinated to me what life in the NBA was all about. I mean, we went out, we hit the club, we were on the dance floor, we were drinking the cocktails, talking to the pretty girls. I said, I'm gonna like the NBA hanging with Stacey.
It's funny because we talk about it. I mean, we're older now, so like me and Scott, we were single at the time. So when we used to, we had this little ritual. Like if I had a girl that was coming up to see me and I hadn't met her yet, I hadn't physically met her, I would give her Scott Williams' his room number because
you got to be careful, right?
He would be on the other end of the hall. So I would say, come down to room 1224. That's Scott's room. Yeah. So then I would be, when I hear the elevator go ching, I would peek out the door because if she was pretty, I'd be like, hey, this is Stacey. You come to see Stacey? I'm over here. But if she wasn't up to my standards, Scott, you got her.
Oh man!
Wow. But
we didn't have the dating apps back then.
No, we didn't.
That's right.
They just showed up. Out a report like guys can today.
And the all-time greatest story. You already know.
Don't tell it.
You already know it. You already know it. It should have been in the book. You should have put it in the book.
You're going to tell down in Orlando.
The Tiny Avenger. The Tiny Avenger. I don't know, listeners, you heard this story last year or a couple years ago.
It's worth telling again, yeah.
I tell you. So we're in Orlando. We go on Church Street where all the bars are. So for young guys, first, second year in the league, man, we're in hog heaven. We're on a winning team. We're like rock stars. Everybody wants to touch us and everybody wants to talk to us. So you can imagine me and Scott, BJ, we were just having a blast, So we go in this place at Church Street. And so we're, Scott's in there. He comes in and I was already there and Scott comes in and then this little voice was on the floor saying, hey, pick me up. And I it's so loud in there. I said, man, I keep hearing this voice, but I don't know where's
that coming from?
Where's it coming from? So I'm looking around and I'm talking to this girl and her friends. So I'm thinking it's them. I said, did y'all say something? They're like, no, that's her little friend. And so I look down and I'm like, oh, snap. She's like, hey, handsome, pick me up. Put me on the bar. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So I pick her up.
Put me on the bar.
I pick her up like a little doll. So I put her on the bar. She's standing on the bar, and she goes, "I like my men tall." And I was like, no. Then she commenced to tell me who she was. She's Tiny Avenger off of In Living Color, the handyman skit. And I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I watched that show. Are you really the Tiny Avenger? So I looked it up. It was her. Yeah. And she goes, yeah, I like my man tall. My last boyfriend was 6'9". And I was like, I should call the police on this one. It's not physically possible because she's so little. So she goes, well, you got a girlfriend? I go, yeah, I got quite a few. I can't do this. But I got somebody I can introduce one of my friends because she goes, you got any friends that are tall like you? I said, yeah, I got just the guy for you. Just stay right here. Don't go anywhere. Stay on the bar. Stay on the bar. It was like, what was it, Coyote Ugly? So she stayed on the bar, right? So I go, Scott's over there. He's having a good time. He's with his little buddies. He's drinking, having a good time. I said, Tank, come over, man. I got this girl. She wants to meet you. All she kept talking about was, I want to meet Scott Williams. I want to meet Scott. I want to meet the Tank. I want to meet the Tank. So I said, he goes, well, how's she look, King? I said, she's pretty sexy. She's pretty sexy. Come on, man. Come on. And Scott, being a young guy, he's like a little hound dog. Really? Okay, let's go. So I
walked right into that.
So we come across, when you watch King Kong and he's going through the forest and all the trees are moving. Yeah. That's how we were coming across the dance floor. We're moving people out of the way. So we meet the Tiny Avenger. So he goes, King, where's she at? She's on the bar. Get out of here. No, she's on the bar. You got to be kidding. She's, come here, big fella. Come here. I like my guy, Todd. This is my friend, Scott Williams. You wanted to meet him? Here he is. Oh, he's handsome. Oh, he's handsome. He's a tall drink of water. And so as the night went on, Tank's out there dancing. He's like, dance with a girl. He's got her on his shoulder like a little baby.
No, that's taking too far.
Don't tell anybody, King. King, don't tell anybody. Don't worry, I ain't saying nothing, Tank. What happened at the end of the night, Tank? What happened at the end of the night,
Tank? They had no cell phones.
In your grave.
Hey, so they're saying what goes on in Vegas stayed in Vegas. What happened in Orlando? No one needs to know.
No, I don't want to put no false accusations out there. I bought her a drink. I was polite and went on about the rest of my business.
Oh my God! I'm telling you what. I was looking through every chapter of Through the Fire to see if I can find that particular incident because everything else is in there. I'm like, okay, so I know the Tiny Avenger's got to be in there. Yeah, the Tiny Avenger is not in there. Wow.
I tell a lot of stories, obviously, about my time in Chicago with MJ and you and Cartwright and Paxson, Scotty and Horace. But one thing I wanted the book to be about was I wanted it to stand on my own two legs. I didn't want to share too many things with, to be a sensational book. It's not a tell-all book. I love playing with you guys in Chicago. These are my brothers. I always talk about the way that Michael Paxson, Craig Hodges, and Cartwright taught us younger players how to be pros was the reason for the longevity of my basketball career. And I call it Always Be Pro, ABP, because it's one thing to be able to produce on the court. And there was a lot more players that were probably more talented than I was that didn't play, I think, as long as as I did for 15 years because of the professionalism I was taught at a younger age. And I had a chip on my shoulder too. When I wasn't drafted, I wrote down every player's name that was drafted, who drafted them. And I was determined to play longer than everybody in that 1990 draft class. And I did play longer than everybody except for one dude, Stacey. You might remember, he's the only Hall of Famer from that 90 draft class. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a hint, his nickname is the Glove.
Oh, all right, Gary Payton, yeah.
Wow,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, 15 years in the NBA for Scott Williams.
Yeah, I played 50. I think GP played 17, won a championship, I believe, at the end of his career down in Miami.
Talk a little bit. We had Phil on last week, and that was a really good show having him on. And I've always told my experiences with Phil. How as a player, sometimes great, sometimes not so great. But tell our listeners a little bit about your experience playing for Phil Jackson.
Well, I don't know if you noticed my lips tighten up a little bit. I'm kind of like you, Stacey. I had some great experiences there. Obviously, Phil and Jerry gave me an opportunity as an undrafted rookie to try to go out there and prove what I could do in the NBA, and I'm always grateful and appreciative for that. Phil put me in and all of us, I write about in my book what it was like to learn that triangle offense, how hard it was, how many different pieces there were, how you had to read and react not only to your teammates, but also the defense. But it also was a system that allowed me to show my strengths of what I was as a player. Why a lot of times he put me in positions to minimize my weaknesses as well, like he did. I think a lot of us that we were all very successful, went on to play on other teams and be successful and be contributors. But there was also the other side of that I always say we weren't close. I wasn't close like a relationship like he had with Michael or John Paxson. I always felt like I was the low guy on the team and was taking a lot of the SHIT that rolls downhill sometimes on in the pecking order. And I didn't always appreciate that. He wasn't coming over to my house for dinner, and I'm sure he wasn't inviting me over to his. So, but the working relationship was wonderful. It wasn't like my relationship with Coach Dean Smith at North Carolina, who was a father figure to me. And in the NBA, it's something different. You want him to pull the best out of me, and me to be able to go out there and produce for him on the floor as well. It's kind of a two-way street.
Take us back to winning that first championship, the night in Los Angeles. Is the famous shot of Jack Nicholson coming up and shaking Phil Jackson's hand, saying, you got us. What was that night like, and what was the celebration like afterwards?
That was crazy. I remember not knowing quite what to do as we ran around the court. They don't have that on-court celebration and, bring all the confetti down when you're on the road and build the stands. And, you run down to the locker room and you meet, Bob Costas was back on NBC back then. You meet Bob Costas down there with Commissioner Stern. May he rest in peace. He did so much good for this NBA. But it was a totally different thing. You grab the teammates. But I remember before, we're all jubilant, and then it was Craig Hodges and Coach Jackson kind of pulling us back together, because after ball games, we would always say the Lord's Prayer. And I thought that was really kind of cool, as though we're so excited and adrenaline's pumping that we did take the time to give thanks before we kind of start popping the champagne bottles and spraying one another with it. We didn't have the goggles back in the day. You had the sting of the champagne, hit your eyeballs and start turning it red. And, they were cold, and but it was something that it's hard to recreate that in life. And I was on Kermit Washington's podcast, and we were talking about what it's like to be a player and the adrenaline of winning a big game and playing championship games. I don't know, it's adrenaline and a mixture of an X factor that I remember when I was about to have a child, and people were saying that it's going to be the greatest experience of your life. And I write about in the book, I know it fits my kid's Benjamin and Ava, but being a father has been the greatest thing I've ever done, better than playing in the NBA. But for that singular moment of when that clock hits double zeros and all the things that you have sacrificed, the parties that you've missed, the family celebrations, the rehab, the injuries, all the sprint work that you've done, the time in the weight room, the film session, traveling around the country and getting in at 3 a.m, all the sacrifices all come to make you feel like you're just on top of the world, and you can't get it from drugs or sex. Even money doesn't recreate that feeling.
I don't know about the sex part. I'm just going to be honest here, big fella. Hey, I don't know about that, Steak. But the other ones, I agree with you, big dog. Hey, Scott, talking about you just hit on it, talking about being a father and how that's the greatest experience for you. In your book, you talk about breaking the cycle from how you were raised with your father and what you had to endure, the abuse, the physical abuse, and the abuse of your mom. And you decided that it stops with you. You're not going to ever be that kind of father to your kids. Talk a little bit about that, and talk a little bit about your kids.
Yeah, Stacey. Domestic violence is a learned behavior. Unfortunately, 1 out of 20 people, 20 people every minute are affected by domestic violence here in the United States. 1 out of every 3 women at some point in time in their life will either be affected directly or know somebody that will be affected directly. 1 out of 7 men as will also same statistic. And one thing that I've learned from working with domestic violence centers over the years is that unless someone is willing to commit to getting help or getting treatment, then they're apt to create the same behavior. We're watching my father strike my brother over the head with a wine jug and blood squirting everywhere, and my brother dropping to the floor in a hotel room in Hawaii on a vacation. You think there's going to be a great family trip, and the lies, the hotel security, and everything else it's devastating to watch that at a young age. I thought my brother was dead. I honestly did. I've never seen so much blood before in my entire life. And that was something that I never, ever wanted to bring that type of direct physical violence, but also the yelling, the verbal abuse to my relationships. So talking about that with my kids, with people that I trust and counselors, and how to break that cycle is very important for people that young people that find themselves in the same similar situation that I was in, because it's a lot of shame, a lot of shame that goes with being in a household such as that. And think of this, it was just physical and verbal abuse. I can't even imagine people that I've had spoken to that have opened up to me that have been sexually abused as well. That's also something that is passed on from generation to generation. But my kids are fantastic. Benjamin, 21 now, down in Austin, working in with the Austin Spurs program. I know he's over the moon excited about the opportunity that they got the #1 pick, and that the big 7'5" guy from France. I could always butcher the pronunciation of his last name, but that he's going to be coming to the San Antonio, Austin area, so he'll get a chance to watch him play a lot. My daughter Ava is 20 now. She's fantastic down there in Austin as well. She was #1 equestrian rider and just loves horses. So she's working in that field, the equestrian field as well. So big shout out to Benjamin and Ava. I'm sure we'll be watching this, if not live, down the road.
Well, Stacey already kind of embarrassed you once, but now's the portion of the program where we ask our third member of our group, Tim Kelley, to ask a question, which you got to buckle in for this because you never know what he's going to ask. He always does some private research and comes up with something that we don't know about.
Well, I got a couple things for Scott. Well, one is when you were in a holy sweater, Jordan said to you, hey, I could play 9 holes on the front and another 9 holes on the back. Is that a true story?
Well, I don't remember if it was Jordan or if it was Will Perdue. I kind of get that one mixed up. Yeah, I was making the middle. I had this great red. It was a Ralph Lauren sweater, so I was real proud of it. But it was getting a little tattered. I won't lie. I don't think there was 9 holes in it. The exaggeration continues to grow, but it might have had a hole or two around the collar, or maybe down on the backside for sure. But that was the great thing about being on those guys, on those teams. You gotta have thick skin,
Oh yeah.
And I write in the book a little bit about Stacey and Bill Cartwright and the relationship that the two of them had. Stacey was the master, the best teammate I've ever had in 15 years at being able to do voice impersonations, and he had Bill's down to an art form. And Bill never got too hot about anything, but absolutely hated when Stacey would get on him and do that, because the entire bus would roar with laughter that Stacey had it nailed so good. And one of the ones I think that set Bill off the most was when Stacey would do Christmas carols in Cartwright's voice during the holidays, and that one got Bill so mad that he came back and wrote a flyer for a basketball camp for right-handed players. Stacey King's right-handed basketball players. Yeah. Stacey being a lefty had trouble going right at times. So I write about that in the book. But the cast of characters that we had, like I say, growing in the early part of my NBA career was the best thing that ever happened to him. Yeah, Jordan could be tough at times, but I also remember being on the road, him picking up a check or inviting us back into a roped off area that he had before VIP was a thing. Those types of things sometimes get missed when we talk about Michael Jordan, or coming up on the front of the plane And after he had probably either got cleaned out in the back or cleaned those guys out in the back where they were playing a high money game where Stacey, Will, BJ, and Pax and I and Will were probably playing, blackjack for 10 or 15 bucks a hand. He'd come up and be the dealer and say, hey, I'll be the bank. You guys bet whatever makes you uncomfortable. I looked at that as him trying to be part of the team and being connected to what we were doing up in the front as well.
Hey, Scott, also speaking of Bulls' big moments, you came up this past April in the news talking about that kid Calhoun when he hit the $1 million shot. Says you, Paxton, and Pippen went crazy. And then you also advocated for him to get his money.
Yeah, it was one of those things where when you're not always playing the rotation or whatever, you're looking to see what some of the things are going on during the timeouts. And I remember that, $1 million shot from 3/4 of the court. And it was obviously right in front of our huddle, our bench. So when a kid hit the shot, I gave him a big high five and a hug and started smacking him on his backside about 7 or 8 times. And I realized this dude just made more than I made my entire 3 years here. Playing on these minimum contracts with this one shot he just hit. So, yeah, there was something about him having played some D3 basketball, and the insurance company didn't want to pay out.
Yeah.
But the Bulls stepped in, and they paid him over 20 years.
Wow. It's funny you talk about how we used to, when we were, on the sideline during the timeout, we'd always be watching the dancers, or we'd be just, just watching around. The time we had Robin Ficker. He came on our show. The Washington Bullets, now it's the Wizards. We had him on the show, and he was hilarious talking about some of the things. You remember him, right?
Oh, sure.
The heckler, yeah.
Behind the visiting team's bench.
I tell people.
One time, remember the time he got on Jackson, started reading from Jackson's book?
Yeah, the Maverick.
That's the only time I'd see Phil Jackson not know what to say.
Oh, Phil was so mad. I mean, he'd read excerpts from the Jordan rules. I mean, everything. I'm telling you, if he was in today's game, and he was allowed to do that, he would be escorted out. The guys could not handle that kind of heckling. He was a master heckler, man.
Phil got him back, though.
Oh.
He started reading about his...
the domestic abuse.
Right.
Yeah, I remember he had domestic violence, and it feels like, and he slapped his wife in the kitchen and started reading his thing. I'm like, oh, that's slow, Phil. And then, because I remember in Maverick, it got Phil so mad that he even walked over to him and said, that's really low, Robin. That's really low. And so then when the role was reversed, Phil got him, and then Robin told him, that's low, Phil. That's really low. But he got him.
Yeah, Phil wasn't from that Michelle Obama playbook of when they go low, I go high. Phil said we go low, I'll go even lower and cut him down. But I do remember that guy quite well, and I remember I was told, do not engage with him. Just keep your mind focused on the basketball game. So to see Phil lose it and go back at him, that was kind of surprising. I know there was something you mentioned, the Jordan rules book, and I here I am. What it was 33 years later for us. I think when that book probably came out, and we had a reunion for our 20th year celebration of championship, and there was a paragraph about me that I didn't even know until much later, that Johnny Bach had said that he was afraid of me and that he brought a gun to practice. And I never knew that. I would have ran for a wall for Johnny Bach. I thought of him as the coach. I was one of the coaches. I was close to him and Jim Clements. And I was so shocked to hear that. I'm not going to beat a guy that's no longer with us, but that type of attitude. No wonder Phil Jackson's never contacted me in 30 years. Maybe those dudes are crazy. I thought I was crazy. I thought I was a great guy. I worked extremely hard for those dudes.
You know what? It's funny. My rookie year, because they had just played the Pistons before, and that's when Doug Collins got slammed on the table. They had the big fight at Chicago Stadium. So when I got to the Bulls. I think my first preseason game, I got ejected for fighting Scott Hastings. Okay, so after the game, they come in the locker room, and then Johnny Bach sits next to me. He goes, "Hey, I'm really proud of you. You don't take any shit from anybody. I like that." He goes, "But you know what? these guys deserve every bit of it. And he goes, last year, I got thrown into the stands and Doug got thrown on it. He goes, but this year I'm ready. So he lifts up his little pants leg. You always wear those cowboy boots.
Yeah.
And he's got like a Derringer on the ankle. He had a gun. Ask BJ. He had a gun. And I'm like, this dude is packing on the bench. Like, I thought that was at first I thought it was a normal behavior because I'm like, how is he able to get that on the bench? But he had like a little Derringer, like a little two-shooter that he said if something goes off, I'm ready, Stace. I was like, okay,
wow.
this dude is lost it.
Yeah.
What's this, Wyatt Earp? What is the OK Corral? What's going on here?
Yeah, he's a little crazy. No doubt about that one. You having that gun. You imagine what John Morant would think about that story right now.
He might support it.
But this young fella is doing here. He needs to get some serious counseling for sure. But Johnny Bach, the master of that Chicago Bulls defense, the way he had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen out there pressing and trapping. As much as we were known for kind of an up and down freewheeling team in the East, I think our defense was what helped us win those three championships we were on, and then of course the second set of three-peat that they had as well. It was the ability to be able to play both styles in the regular season, but also the ability to play defense and rebound in the playoffs as well.
Well, Scott, it was really a lot of fun going back through memory lane. We want to encourage everybody to pick up a copy of your book. It's called Through the Fire, and we want to mention that 50% of the book sales profits go to benefit the Compass Center.
Wait, 50? Hold on. Hold the phone.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was reading that the wrong way. That was at a special event we were told about.
Yeah. No, we did do a book signing in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We had kind of a special deal, but yeah, I got to try to make some of this money back. But yes, the proceeds from each book sold do go to not only the Compass Center in Chapel Hill, but also the Chrysalis Center here in Phoenix, Arizona. So please, if you guys can break out $10 or $20, on Amazon.com. The Kindle version goes for $10. The paperback is $20 and the hardcover is $25. You can also get it on BarnesandNoble.com as well in paperback. So I really appreciate anybody that would do that. We're trying to raise some money and raise some awareness to the two domestic violence centers in Chapel Hill, which is and close to Coach Smith's heart, and my mother for that matter, and then here in Phoenix where I live.
And Stacey's got some of his signature hot sauce heading your way. So we want to thank you again for joining us, Scott. Best of luck. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs, and we'll have you on again. We'd love chatting with you.
Yeah, we got to talk more NBA. I was a little surprised that Lakers went there in Denver and got beat, but this kid Jokic, he's unbelievable. He had a triple-double with 6 minutes to go in that first half. Number one. I'm looking to see what he can do tonight.
Should be fun. Both conference finals look excellent. Scott Williams, our special guest on Gimme the Hot Sauce. Thank you very much. A lot of fun catching up with Scott Williams. Plenty of stories of his exploits with Stacey and BJ Armstrong. Young guys with some money in their pockets and lots of free time. And
the Avenger.
Yeah. That's an all-timer there.
Hey, listen. It's the funniest thing that ever happened to me, experience in my life was the Tiny Avenger.
The way you tell it is just hilarious.
Scott don't want to. He don't.
No, of course not.
He's trying to forget it. Listen, America, Scott, I love you, boy. But you should have seen him out there on the dance floor with this little bitty lady. He was like this. You hold a baby.
Right.
He's holding a baby and he's dancing with her. He's doing spins and
my goodness.
I'm like, all right, Tank's gone a little bit too far now. We need to reel him in, Mark. Hey, this may not go the way we want it to go. Yeah. And then at the end of the night, we're walking out. I'm going out with my people. I said, Scott, you need to ride back to the hotel. No, I'm good, King. I'm good. So I'm like, you good? How you getting back to the hotel? I'm good, King. I'm good. So I look, there's a crowd of people walking through the door. Now remember, you can't really see her.
Of course not, yeah.
Yeah, so she goes, hey, it was nice meeting you. I'm like looking down. I'm like, oh, snap. She's going home with him. Oh, so there's I had to be sworn to secrecy. So he said, all right, Stacey, listen, whatever you do, you can't get back and tell anybody about this tomorrow at practice. I'm like, oh, man, your secret is safe with me. it's safe. You already know that's not going to happen, but your secret is safe with me. So I said, okay, cool. So get back to practice. We're all stretching, and we're just chilling. Everybody's talking about what they did on their off day, whatever. And I said, what you young boys do on your off day? Y'all really want to know? Oh, yeah, let me tell you what it is. Scott Williams is with a little person, Tiny Avenger. They said, no, Tiny Avenger off of Handyman? Everybody knew who Handyman. I go, yes, that was his date last night. And they went ballistic. They were telling jokes about that man for the next 6 months.
That's probably why you didn't put it in the book. That's not what a story.
When I got the book through the fire,
you thought it'd be in there.
I thought because he had to go through the fire to be with the Tiny Avenger, so I thought that he would be. This is a good book, ladies and gentlemen. I'm serious, but the Tiny Avenger story is not in there. I was a little disappointed.
The follow-up book.
So did you really sing Christmas carols as Bill Cartwright?
Yes, I did. Bill, let me tell you something, man. America. Yes, I do great voices. I'm an impersonator, okay? But, Bill Cartwright, and Scott was right, because Bill hated it. There would be times like I would be on the microphone at a shoot around and the PA system would be on. And then I'd just be out there. It'd be Christmas time. I'd be saying jingle bells, And then all of a sudden a basketball would come like 90 miles an hour and just miss my head because he was trying to hit me with the basketball. Hey! Cut that shit off. I'm like, oh, baby, I'm just joking. But he hated it.
I could just hear Stacey go, chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
America, karma. You know what they say? Karma comes back on you. And he used to tell me all the time, he said, hey, let me tell you something. You're going to lose your voice one day, and I'm going to be there, and I'm going to laugh. And I'm like, whatever, dude, whatever. And sure enough, I had to get my tonsils taken out like 2 years later. So he put like a little curse on me. So yeah. And so my Bill Cartwright voice is still there. I don't do it as much as I used to because he did curse me, but it's sometimes still there.
You could have made an album of it. Stacey King doing Bill Cartwright at Christmas. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
And break.
Oh, we got to sell some stuff. How about the hot sauce? We talked about it with Scott Williams. Let's bring Christopher Walken in for a little promo here.
Well, Mark, I'm a little bummed.
Why's that?
I went to Jewel today. I had a couple bodies in the trunk, so I didn't have a lot of time. And there was no sauce on the shelves yet.
Oh, got to get that on there.
Well, I think that Whispers guy didn't pack it up right or something because it wasn't there. So I think by next week, we're going to be good. So go to use code King21.
Go to King's house.
.com.
No, don't go to my damn house. You ain't getting you ain't getting my house. No, I got no hot sauce to give you. Only one person got my hot sauce.
Oh boy, here we go. Tiny Avenger.
No Tiny Avenger, baby. No Tiny Avenger. Woo!
Give me the hot sauce.
Yeah, that was it.
That's it. You're packing it with love back in your closet over there.
Yeah, Walken's gone. He left.
He left. Yeah. All right. Well, let's give some recommendations for some stuff to watch. Stacey, you got anything for the folks?
Yeah, I watched a couple of things. The Program. It's a show about college football that was like 1993. I've seen it before, and I just happened to catch it again on my Fire Stick. And it's a great rendition of what it's like in college sports, big-time college sports. You had guys going pro. You had guys with the boosters, and James Caan was one of the lead guys. Omar Epps was in it. Really a good Halle Berry was in it. So a really good movie. I loved it, and I'd watch it again. It's a must-watch if you like sports movies. Give me the next one. What's my next one?
Check that out. I haven't seen that yet.
Okay. Good movie.
Air.
Good movie. Air. Okay. I have some complaints about the movie. I always think when you're going to do a true story, you got to try to get the people that match up to the people they're actually doing, okay? That's the only way, to me, it really sells it, okay? Miss Jordan's character reminds me of her, Viola Davis. I give thumbs up to that one, okay? Phil Knight with Ben Affleck. No, I didn't get that one. Sonny Vaccaro with Matt Damon. Absolutely freaking not, because Sonny Vaccaro looked more like grandfather on the Munsters. Right. That didn't look nothing like Sonny Vaccaro. Okay.
Right.
But the killer for me was David Falk, super agent of the '90s, who had all the big stars. He was my agent as well.
Bird of Prey.
Oh my goodness. David Falk is as bald as head, as smooth as a baby's ass, okay? He had no hair whatsoever. But in this movie, he's got a salad. He got a full head of hair. Because I kept thinking, where's David Falk at? I'm looking for the bald-headed guy, that looks like, Lex Luthor. I'm looking around, like, where's he at? Where's he at? I see this guy with full head of hair, young-looking guy, nice-looking guy. And it's, David Falk here. And I'm like, oh, hell no. Hell no. He must have some creative control. And Dave is my dude. Dave, if you're watching the show, I know why you did it. I know why you did it. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You want to put, if I'm gonna have somebody play me in a show, in a movie, I'm gonna play my own self because I'm sexy. Some people might say Denzel. Some people might say, Shamar Moore. Will Smith. I'm gonna play myself.
Michael B. Jordan.
No.
You want to have him do?
No, I don't want to. No.
Since you used up now in Creed.
Yeah, no. I just think I'm gonna play myself. I think I'm gonna play myself. Now, if someone's gonna play Whispers, guess who would play Whispers? Who do you think would play you Whispers in the show?
An old Christopher Walken.
No. You give up?
Yeah.
Clay Aiken?
Here it comes.
No, that's close though. But no, not Clay Aiken. Steve Buscemi.
Oh yeah, Steve Buscemi.
I can see that.
I can see him being Whispers.
Yeah.
I can see him. I thought about that the other day. I was watching Boardwalk Empire, and I was like, that's Tim Kelley.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. And Mark, if they were to have a live version of you, Mark, man, I'd probably have to say Wayne Newton.
Wow. Donkey Shade, huh?
Wow.
No, the young Wayne Newton. Wayne Newton had a great salad. Even Wayne Newton at 90 had a great salad. Come on, Mark's got a good salad.
Performing in Las Vegas for 80 years.
Yeah, he's only 93 years old.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, still performing.
Still performing.
Oh, see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it's more like Weekend at Bernie's. They just had popped up out there.
How are we just gonna sit here
Let's
and
roll them out.
You know what? Hey, Wayne Newton, if you're listening, you're probably not.
If you're listening.
If you're alive sitting on a couch somewhere, hey man, keep doing what you're doing. Don't let these guys clown you. 93 years old. Hey man, more power to you.
Yeah, we see Wayne Newton in the comments every week on YouTube.
Hey,
So yeah,
he's
watching. Yeah.
At 93, if I'm at 93, I'm hoping I got all my faculties.
Hey, Whispers, you said you saw Bill Burr in Vegas.
Yeah.
Do you know he's the voice for an animated show on Netflix called F is for Frank about a dysfunctional family? Have you checked that out?
I have not seen it.
You got to watch it. I mean, obviously, it's all centered around his comedy.
But I did catch one of Stacey's recommendations
What's
over
that?
the weekend. Cocaine Bear.
What did you think?
What did you think?
That's one of the best movies I've seen in a long time.
I told you.
I mean, as far as just really knowing it's going to be the dumbest, stupidest thing I've ever seen and just kick back and watching it then, it's grab the popcorn and just enjoy it. It's absolutely hilarious.
I told you. The concept is stupid. And
really?
Yeah, the concept is stupid.
It's based on a true story, though.
It's based on a true story.
Which is even funnier.
The grizzly bear is snorting cocaine. Okay.
Yeah.
And when you think about that concept,
And Ray Liotta.
and then he gets and Ray Liotta's last
movie.
His last movie's on there.
But he kills in it.
And then you got Mayor Clay Davis off The Wire. He's on there. He's like
Jesse Tyler Ferguson.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good little cast there. That's a good little cast.
That scene in the tree with Jesse Tyler Ferguson.
Oh, yeah.
I was laughing so hard. I was just great movie.
So if you want a movie that you want to sit there and if you're not on drugs, but you think you're on drugs when you're watching it, Cocaine Bear.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not advocating using drugs, but I'm telling you, when you watch Cocaine Bear, you're gonna be thinking, you'll be starting to scratch yourself, thinking something's wrong with you. Be like Smokey in the hen house on Friday.
I think it's time to pull down the curtain on what are we watching this week. It's brought to our friends at Biggers Mazda. Their sizzling new Elgin location at Randall Road is the biggest Mazda store in the state of Illinois. Biggers is offering a bottle of Stacey's signature hot sauce with first test drives of new or pre-owned vehicles. It's your choice, everything from the coolest SUVs to the stunning Miata. Join the fun at 2100 Randall Road in Elgin at Biggers Mazda. Tell them that Wayne Newton sent you.
Wayne Newton.
Wow. I don't think I'm going to be able to live that down. I was thinking maybe Tom Cruise or something. I get Wayne Newton. So
Steve Buscemi and Wayne Newton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll be limping out of here. No self-esteem.
I give him Michael B. Jordan. He goes, no.
No. I'm not Michael B. Jordan.
You better turn down Brad Pitt, okay?
Yeah, I'm the black Brad Pitt. I told y'all I was one of the sexiest men in Montana.
Yeah, you didn't mention that to Phil because Phil would have been.
Well, you know what? Phil would have been jealous because he lives in Montana.
Right.
So he'd have been mad.
You've been upstaging.
Yeah. See, look at that. Look at that, America.
There you go.
10 sexiest men alive in Montana. Oh, look. I forgot about Paris. Oh,
yeah, move over, Victor Wembanyama. We got Stacey King.
They were over there yelling Parlez-vous français when I was over there.
Yeah.
Shout out to all my fans in France who follow me.
Oh, Princeton.
Oh, the Princeton Man of the Year. You know what? I'm a pretty smart guy. I really went to Harvard, but they put me on Princeton. I don't know why, but
that was during the NCAA run.
Okay, That was during.
They won a couple
run.
of games. Yeah,
that's why I said I went to Princeton.
That's exactly why.
I lied. I didn't go to Princeton because they lost. Whoever won the national championship, UConn. That's where I went. Go Huskies.
Before we get out of here, we want to tell you about our folks at Windy City Limousine. Will help you get to where you need to go. Mike is back. All right.
Mike is back. He came back from Ireland. Let me get my little read here. Get the gold pipes ready. All right. Windy City Limousine provides championship service. Making a reservation is so easy, it's a slam dunk. Let Windy City break the full court pressure or traffic and get you to your destination in style and on time. Hey, Tim, are you sweating? Contact 847-916-9300. That's 847-916-9300. Or go to windycitylimos.com and tell them nobody sent you. Because you're not going to get a discount.
How would Bill Cartwright do that, Reed?
I'm not doing it, Mark. Okay, I'm not doing it.
Come on, let's hear it.
I'm not doing it. Do your Mike Tyson.
Yeah, so Windy City.
Oh, no.
Oh, God. This is throat punch time right now, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, yay.
We got to bury him. You got to work on that one.
It's going to be the Tyson pillow talk.
Listen, no. We got to work on that.
We're talking about our friend Al Foreign, who, impressionist Al, who always posts those quick videos, 15 impersonations in 90 seconds, and whispers saying, well, I'm gonna give him 3 or 4 of mine. I'm like, no, we don't need that.
I'm going to practice up before he's out. Give him a run for his money.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I found another impersonator there that I'm be trying to get on the show. He's pretty good. I heard him. I saw him on Twitter. I sent a little feeler out.
Nice.
I'm a big game hunter. I'm always trying to get the perfect guest out here. So, speaking of big hunter, Mark, tell us what we got planned for next week.
Hey, I know you love Scott Williams this week. Next week, another member of the Championship Bulls, one of these 6-time champions, Scottie Pippen, is going to be our special guest on next week's episode of Gimme the Hot Sauce. We're always live on YouTube, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the evening, and you can get it the next day on all your favorite podcast carriers.
Well, we need to play the Price is Right theme. Dun, 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 dun. When we mentioned Scotty's name, we got to play the Price is Right. Professional analyst. Just say thank you very much. I'm a professional analyst. Thank you. A little slow on that. Should have been there before I even started talking, but that's okay. No, we got Scottie Pippen coming next week. I'm excited about that because it's hard to get. Scotty doesn't do interviews anymore, just like Phil. And to us to be able to get him and come on my show, it's going to be a fun show. So if you had fun with Phil, which you guys did, make sure you tune in next week and be watching the show next week. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Does Pip know the Tiny Avenger story?
Nah, he might know it. He might know it because he was in the back. He was on the backside of it when I told it. So, but Scotty's gonna have some really really good stories too. He's all those teams that I played on. There's millions of stories. A lot of the stories that can be aired and we can talk about, and there's others behind the scenes. Now, Scott wished we never talked about the Tiny Avenger and brought that out, but it was so good of a story. I had to do it. You can do that in the podcast world.
Absolutely.
I don't know if I do that on TV or anything, but you can do it on a podcast.
And make sure you pick up a copy of Scott Williams' book. It's called Through the Fire. And some of the proceeds, not half, are going to go to help victims of domestic violence. He stopped me right away.
Hey, no. Oh, no, it ain't half.
Man's got to make a buck,
I gotta make some money somehow.
There you go. Time to bring down the curtain on this episode of Gimme the Hot Sauce. I want to thank the Sriracha crew. Our guy Nicky celebrating a birthday. Happy birthday to him.
72 today. Yeah. Happy 72nd birthday.
And until next time, Stacey.
Drive home safely. Beep, beep.
Oh, my goodness. Give me the hot sauce.